Hey everyone, I'm happy to announce a big improvement to the StateSmith workflow. It's way more enjoyable to work with. Now, it's basically a CLI tool here, and you can find the documentation and the source code on the main StateSmith repo /source, and then this path here. To install it, it's super simple. Basically just need to run this command here, .NET tool install global so you can use it anywhere, and then statesmith.cli. All right, let's jump into actually using it. So for this, we're going to create 3 fake state machines, or 3, I guess the bones for 3 state machines. We're going to assume we're making a smart plant minder. So it's going to comprise of an Arduino running C++ code and a computer running C# code. The Arduino has 2 state machines, one for detecting button presses, debouncing, and maybe doing long press detection, double press detection, that kind of thing. And then a control state machine, which reads the button state machine and decides when to water the plant and does all the communication with the server state machine. And maybe the server state machine provides a web GUI or some sort of, I don't know, IoT or monitoring, something kind of interesting there. So that's the general setup that we're going to work through. So I'm going to open up a terminal here. And just like it said on the other page, all we got to do is type ss.cli to launch the tool. Now, right away, it's going to say, here's the version, but it's also going to say, there's an error. You didn't specify a verb or a command. So the 3 options are run, create, and setup. But if you don't specify one, you'll find this for all the commands too. You can use a menu at the bottom here. So you can use the up and down arrow keys. We're going to run the StateSmith code generation. It opens up another menu for the run kind of menu. We're going to say, go ahead, run here recursively. It says no scripts found to run because we haven't made them yet. That's fine. The other way to use this tool is with specifying those verbs. So we can say run. If we do this just by itself, it's going to jump us straight into the run menu. And we'll just exit out of there. To find all the commands for the run verb, you can say /CLI run -- help. Here it provides all of the options. So we're going to specify that we want it to run here, and we want it to run recursively. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to say, we want you to run here recursively. And there it just bangs it out. There's no menu to interact with. Okay, so that's the basics of the CLI. You can either use the UI menu or command line arguments for most of it, not all of it yet. Okay, so let's create our button state machine. We've got our C++ button state machine. So we're going to go /CLI, and we're going to say create a new StateSmith project from a template. And it says, hey, do you want to check for updates? It's been longer than a day since we last checked. It's basically just checking to see what's the latest version of StateSmith available. Right now it's the same, so we'll just use that, and we're going to type in our name for the state machine. So this is going to be button state machine, and we're going to go with C++. And because it's a plant thing, and it's a relatively small state machine, let's go with plant UML. Plant UML is great for, at least in my personal experience, great for smaller designs that don't kind of cross a threshold of complexity. Okay, and I'm going to go with the default. So it's taken the name that we specified here and said, okay, let's name the file for the state machine. I'm going to go with the default for the diagram and for the script. Right now we only have one template. Let's go ahead and hit that. And yeah, go ahead and confirm. Success. So now we see these 2 here. And if we take a peek here, let me close the terminal for a second. You can see that it has already set it up specifically to C++ so that you can rename it for CPP and .h. We still don't have amazing C++ support yet. It basically is C with a couple like remappings like this here. But yeah, we'll get there in time. Okay, so we generated our first state machine. Let's go ahead and bang on another one. We're going to do, close this so we can see our diagram. We're going to do the control state machine now. Whoops, didn't select the terminal first. Okay. Select the terminal, then hit enter. Okay, I can do this. Now we're going to create another state machine from the project. And right away it says, do you want to check for updates? No, because it's remembered that we just did it recently. It's going to go with the default latest stable. We're going to name this, like you have in the diagram above, control state machine. It's remembered what we did last time, so we're just going to hit enter. It's remembered what we did last time, so we're going to hit enter again. We're going to use the default diagram and script name. Only one template so far, so that's an easy one. Click generate. Boom. Another one up and running. Okay, now we're going to, actually, you know what? Let's run the code generation now. So we're going to go SSCLI, and we can run it from the command like this. So we'll just say run here. And so what it's doing first is it's going to run the button state machine, then the control state machine. And what is interesting about this is that it's actually parsing this output here. And it says run info stored in this location. And the reason why it's storing some in like these kind of temp directories is so it can keep track of the file times. So we're going to run it again, and right away it's going to say, boom, nothing's changed. None of these dependencies have changed, the generated files or the input files. So that part's pretty handy. I like that. All right, we are going to go flip over to Windows. So, oh man, I meant to do this whole thing in WSL. They work both. And just in my mind, I thought, oh, I'll start with WSL because it's nice to show that it works in both. So instead, we'll go from Windows to WSL and show that it works there too. Okay, we're now in WSL and a Unix shell. So we're going to go SSCLI again. It all works. We should be able to run StateSmith code generation. We'll run it here recursively. Now, because we're running on a different operating system, it has different paths for storing the run info. We'll see that in a second here. So yeah, so now it's in temp. We run it again, run code generation. You'll see that, yeah, it's detected that nothing's changed there. Okay, now let's bang out the next one. So the computer for C#. So we're going to go SSCLI create, or we could use the menu, check for updates because we're in WSL. That's a nice little animation there. It hasn't remembered like the settings for kind of storing when the last time we checked. It's different when we're running in Windows or in WSL Linux. So that's why it said, hey, we haven't checked for a while. Anyway, so we'll go last stable. We're going to go server state machine. You know what? Apologies. I forgot to make a directory for this, just for the example. You don't actually need to do this. We're going to make a directory. We're going to... You know what? I don't want that. I'm going to get rid of that. We're going to make a directory just smaller. Server. All right, let's change into that server now. Okay, so we got a little server here. Just to organize our code better, maybe we would put these in an Arduino folder too, but we're just working through an example. Okay, so we're in the server. We're going to run the create command in here instead. Let's CLI, let's say create from a template. And again, it remembers that we haven't, or we don't need to check for updates. We're going to go with the latest stable. And here we're going to go server state machine. This time we're going to go C#. And we're going to go with draw.io SVG, just for fun. I'm going to go with the default naming for the file, diagram, and the script. There's only one template. And we're going to click generate. You should see it pop up in here. Okay, let's go take a quick peek at that. It should show that, yeah, it's figured all that out. And the render config, maybe I'll make this a bit bigger. We can see that, it's got namespace stuff and usings. It's all set up, ready to go for C#. So let's go ahead and do the actual code generation for that too. Run here recursively. It's going to compile the file, all that fun stuff. And while that's running here, I should say too that the diagrams, even though it's generating code, they're not meaningful yet. We'll take a look at the diagrams in a second here, mainly because you have to go in there and put stuff into your designs that actually do make sense. All right, so what do we want to do next here? Run the code generation, right. One of the things that's useful here is sometimes you'll be working in a subdirectory of your project. but you want to run all the code generation together. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. Like if I just want to run the code generation here, that's easy. Here, run. But if I wanted to generate all the Arduino code too, like sometimes if you were particularly in one code base, maybe I'm working deep in one subpart, but I want to compile all of the C code state machine stuff together, it's nice to be able to do that easily without having to always CD back up to the top and then run your code generation here recursively. And the reason why it's regenerating that one is because it stores it at a different path when you're in a different directory for the run info. Anyway, a way to handle that nicely is we're gonna run StateSmith code generation, and we're gonna create a default manifest file here. And yeah, I'll put a message there someday, soon, saying success, but we don't have that yet. This is kind of hot off the presses. And so right away we see this JSON file here. And this manifest is pretty simple. It's got a version, and then it's got paths to search when running the code generation and paths to exclude. So if you were in a big microcontroller project that maybe it's got a whole bunch of like vendor files that you don't need it searching through, scanning through, you can just exclude those paths in here, which is kind of nice, keep things speedy. All right, we'll go clear, and now when we type StateSmith CLI run, it's gonna find the manifest and boom, bang it out right away. It doesn't ask us what we want to do anymore. If we want that for some reason, we can go menu and say, hey, what do you want to do? And it's basically the same as this. Okay, now if we go back into the server again, so if we're working deep in here and we want to run all the code generation again, we can say run upwards. So scan upwards till you find that StateSmith CLI JSON manifest file, and then run that. Here it goes. It went up, found our manifest. Oh yes, found manifest in directory example, just like we wanted, and did all the code generation. So we can keep on working in our sub directories as we want, and then still easily code generate absolutely everything. Okay, but now it's time to look at the diagram files. And so if we click on here, this SVG, and I'm pretty zoomed in, so it's gonna look super duper squished. I'm gonna close this, zoom out a tad. I'll open it again. It's still zoomed in with my machine, but I'll close this to make it look a little bit better. So here's the basic template. It does have our name correct, but then it's just kind of got some default blah stuff in there. So change that to whatever you want. But importantly though, there's no StateSmith plugin that loaded with it yet. And that's always been historically like a little bit of a nuisance when you want to start a new project. It's like, oh great, I gotta copy these files and those files and link this to there. That's been a pain, so we made it easier. We'll zoom back in again here, and we're gonna go to setup now. So down to the bottom, set up VS Code for StateSmith and CSX files. Totally optional. If you're not using draw.io, or you don't care about debugging your CSX files or getting IntelliSense for your CSX files, you don't need to do this. But we're gonna do it because I like it, and maybe you will too. Okay, so we can either set up the draw.io VS Code extension with the StateSmith plugin, or do just the C# script debugging in IntelliSense, or we can do it all. I'm gonna go with do everything. So if we look here, it's done a couple things. Okay, so it set it up, it downloaded the plugin, and it says, okay, we downloaded it to VS Code, this directory, we see it there. And then, it just gives us some helpful hints here. It says, hey, if you haven't installed the extension, the VS Code draw.io unofficial extension, go do that there. Here's some helpful links. It checks our .NET script, see if it's up to date. Looks good. That's not really important. This is kind of like at this point, it's not important. Maybe it will be in the future. And then it goes ahead and it generates our OmniSharp file here. This is for debugging and IntelliSense. Cleans up some of the dummy files that it needed to create for the last step. And it says, hey, we're done. Yeah, if you're working with like a multiple developer project and you have different versions of .NET going on, you might want to ignore the OmniSharp file here. It's got here because it is specific to a target framework. So it's just a hint saying, hey, you might want to ignore that. Here's some commands that you might find useful. And there is some important information in here, mainly about Microsoft changing the default C# VS Code support to drop OmniSharp, which is, super annoying, but it's really easy to, well, it's super annoying that they did it without telling anyone, really, or at least no one seemed to know about it until after it happened. But anyways, this link has a super easy way to deal with it. You just opt out of one thing and click go. And you're in the business. Okay, so now I believe we've done everything we need to do. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to pretend that I did this on purpose. I definitely didn't run all the setup stuff in the wrong place. But if you look here in the server, so maybe it's a good thing that I did this by accident. I didn't actually want to create a VS Code directory inside server. I want to put it up at the top in the example. So it should be up there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that. We'll go up the folder and we're going to go, whoops, set up for everything, run it again, bang, 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 all the stuff we just talked over. It is where we wanted it now. We'll delete this one out of server because it doesn't need to be there. It's not going to hurt anything, but it doesn't need to be there. Okay, so now what we should be able to do is I'm going to close this. And we should be able to click on this SVG. And it should show us. Oh yeah, so there we go. Oh, it's all squished in because I'm going to close this, zoom back out again, click on it, and we should be able to see it a bit better. There we go. These are the part of the ways of recognizing that StateSmith is loaded, the ID and some helpers and this thing here. But yeah, that's oh, maybe we'll show a quick debug too. So let's go ahead and say we're going to debug, oh, not that file. We'll close this. We're going to debug, oh, you know what? Sorry, I'm going to jump around a bit here. Here's something you should not do. When it says, do you want to install the C# dev kit? X that thing. It's terrible for us because it ruins OmniSharp, so don't install C# dev kit. Again, all the details are listed in the places I already shown, and there's a video there that walks you through it, so it's nothing to worry about, but something to complain about for sure. Microsoft has been on a pretty good turnaround with open source, but every once in a while they're going to make a decision that we don't agree with. But let's move on. We're going to debug a C# script file here. Right away, let's check here. Do we have OmniSharp working here? It doesn't look like we're getting IntelliSense. This is what it's telling us down here. OmniSharp restart or select project. We're going to go with this one. So I'm going to just copy it out of the terminal. Go Control-Shift-P to open up my command palette in VS Code. And we're going to go select project. We're going to go CSX example. And it should work here a second. Look at the change in the syntax highlighting. Should grab it here in a second. Come on. All right. Let's go to output. Let's check out OmniSharp log. So it found it. What are you mad about here? Oh, I know what it's mad about. So this is me being kind of silly here. So this part is running in Windows. This part down here is running in WSL, Linux. And I've been testing different .NET versions. And so if I had launched VS Code in WSL, it would be fine, but basically I used Linux to generate my OmniSharp JSON file. And it has different setups. So I'm just going to exit out of there. We'll delete the OmniSharp file. And we'll do StateSmith CLI. We're going to set up VS Code. VS Code do everything. And it should do it nice and quick because it doesn't have to do much other than generate a new file here for us. There we go. So my Windows is using a different .NET than my Linux. That's why, hopefully, it wasn't working. Okay, so now let's try debugging this CSX file again here. And there we go. Right away, we get our IntelliSense. We didn't actually need to do restart OmniSharp or select project. If you're using C# projects or you've got a solution, this one you'll often have to do. But yeah, it should work now. So let's go ahead, pop in a breakpoint. And the other thing that it's done too is it's created this launch JSON thing. So you can just use VS Code. Darn it, I didn't mean to close that. We'll go back to here and hit F5 or start debugging there. So I'm just going to hit F5. And we should see, there we go. We are debugging. Step over that and we'll see it printed out. It looks like there might be something else for me to change here. Yeah, so one thing that I do want to change, and we'll delete this, there's a really handy logging feature here, like thing to disable. I can't remember what it is, so I'm just going to delete this. I thought I was generating this properly already. But maybe I wasn't. So let's say set up VS Code. Go VS Code for C# script stuff. Let's click on launch JSON now. Okay, so there's something I need to work on there, but this is the launch configuration that I was expecting to get generated here. And it just has this logging disabled here. That's a useful thing so that when you actually go to run your debugging, remember how it spat out a whole bunch of stuff over there in our debug console? It's like blah, 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 blah. It's all over the place. Well, when you disable that with this logging module load, so we'll go back to control. So stay here, set a breakpoint, show the other way to run this, and we'll go debug. This time we should only see a few messages and mostly just our output. So yeah, we didn't see a whole bunch of, hey, this is loading, blah, blah, blah. I'll step over that. And we get the output that we're expecting. Okay, now I think there's just one last thing I wanted to demo in here. And that is another one of the rough edges that we currently have. And I think we'll probably fix these up in a couple of weeks, maybe a week or two, depending on how busy my personal life gets or if people want to contribute to help. But that's basically if we go SSCLI and we're in the middle of a terminal menu here, and then we go Control-C to exit. Sometimes like our cursor will disappear. So on Windows, it's fine. Find that maybe it's a WSL thing too, but I think it'll probably happen on Linux too. If we do the same thing, so we're in the middle of this menu, go Control-C to exit. Now my cursor has definitely disappeared. I'm hitting the left arrow key, right arrow key, you can't see it at all. So it has disappeared. So we will fix this. I think it's probably just, have to catch the force quit and then gracefully close the terminal, like special characters that are being printed for that menu. But anyways, the workaround for right now for Unix users, or at least WSL2 users, is type in reset for the terminal. And then we get our cursor back. Okay, well, I hope you found that useful. I I really like it. It's so much faster. It's yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I know I'm tooting my own horn here, but it's just I like StateSmith. It's great. But with the old workflow, it felt very cumbersome to start new projects, and sometimes I would go through that thing like, well, do I really want to do another one and set all this up? Or like remember to copy paste all that? But now it feels almost free, so yeah, I'm hoping you enjoy it too. All right, thanks everyone.